Here.
Hi, Joanna.
Bye-bye.
I think that we should start because it's already 12:05. So as most of you know already, we, the Cyprus, Katerina and I, are organizing these webinars. This is the third webinar, and we are going to have 2 more webinars. And Katerina is actually the co-founder of Cyprus, and she will actually make the comments here, and I will moderate this webinar. So today we have a big honor to have the Queen's University Belfast Science Shop, which is one of the longest science shops. So it was set up in 1989. It is one of the longest established in the UK. Eileen Martin has been there since it was set up, whilst Emma McKenna joined in 2001. And the SciShops at Queen's was a founding member of the Living Knowledge Network and has supported public and community engagements in higher education across Europe for over 25 years, including mentoring new science shops. And it has very successful collaborations with Ulster University, which is the other University of North Ireland, and has been working together with them in different and actually in projects and with students, and they will talk more about these local collaborations. So I think we can now give the stage to Emma and Eileen, and they will talk more about their projects and their science shops. Thank you again, everyone, for being here, and especially the speakers, the hosts of this webinar.
Yeah, we're just figuring out the technology because we had a little bit of a blip. When I say we, I really mean that Emma is figuring out the technology here, but I presume at least you can hear us.
There, they should be able to see us now. Sorry,
Right,
we've had some issues with the university's Wi-Fi system just the last few days. So can everyone see this okay now?
Yeah.
The slide okay? Yeah.
I can mute most of the people here because the camera changes. So if anyone wants to talk, please unmute yourself to reply. So I can hear and see you perfectly.
And you can see the slides as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to make a start. I'm Eileen Martin, and I run the science shop here at Queen's University with my colleague Emma McKenna. And I've been involved in this work for quite a long time, almost since the inception of the science shop, in fact, at Queen's. So Queen's University Belfast is based in Northern Ireland. Little map there, which shows where we are. And we've been around at this university for quite a long time, over 150 years. So we're also in Queen's a member of the Russell Group of universities in the UK. So those really are the research-intensive universities here. We have just under 25,000 students. We have over 3,500 staff and an increasingly diverse staff and student body. We have about 70 different countries represented among our students and staff here at Queen's. And we're known for being one of the research-intensive universities. We're ranked 8th in the UK for the research that we do. And obviously then that matters in terms of the broader context of the work that we do in the science shop. So the science shop that we operate here in Queen's, we are part of an international network of science shops. And the work that we work with and on behalf of local civil society organisations, local citizens organisations. We work across a wide range of disciplines, and the work that we do is in response to the needs for research and knowledge of these civil society organisations. And this is a thing that is distinctive about science shops. And obviously we're part of an international network of science shops. The model that we operate is based on the Dutch model. And we are working always through the curriculum. So as I mentioned, I've been involved in the science shop for quite a long time. We were set up here in Queen's in 1989. And at that point, actually when I joined the science shop, we were working as a science shop jointly with the other university here in Northern Ireland. And so that's Ulster University. And the funding that we had at that point funded me part-time to work across both of the universities. And obviously part of that work is then also to work with the community partners and CSOs right across Northern Ireland. So eventually we did manage to have a science shop set up at the other university. But actually both of the science shops here in Northern Ireland work right across Northern Ireland. And so the community organisations that we work with in Northern Ireland, our colleague is based in Derry, which is in the west of Northern Ireland, but actually she could be working with organisations in Belfast, and equally we will be working with organisations over in the west as well. So the initial funding for the science shop was from the Nuffield Foundation, and essentially it was a public understanding of science program. So at that time, which is basically 30 years ago, there was a lot of talk about opening up the knowledge of the universities to different constituencies, and particularly to organisations who weren't in a position to pay for the research. And the thinking from the Nuffield Foundation when I met with them was that the science shop could be a mechanism for CSOs to be able to access some of the research resources of the university, and that the science shop could act as a mediating structure for that research. So we had funding initially for 3 years from the Nuffield Foundation, and actually we were based then in a joint Ulster University, Queen's University Policy Research Institute, because we were also trying to explore the kind of policy structures that might enable these things to happen. And then we managed to get an extension of that funding. I was still the only member of staff at that point. We had a voluntary director, and we had then part-time clerical support. And we then managed to get an office opened at Ulster University. We managed to draw down some National Lottery Charities Board funding. And we were also continuing to work with our Department for Education, which had responsibility for higher education funding then. So we managed over a period of time, I guess, to convince them that it would be a worthwhile initiative to fund through more formal departmental structures. And that is the basis on which our core funding has been based since, it's about 15 years now. So as I say, that funding comes through our Department for Education, but actually it comes through a very specific fund. And even though we've been funded under it for 15 years, it's actually a higher education innovation funding, because in some ways, I guess this work is still considered innovative. And then in terms, so that's our core funding. And then in terms of the development work that we feel that we need to do and that we're so interested in doing, we have managed to draw down other funding through a range of different European projects that we've been involved in. And that those projects, of course, are not just about the funding. They are so much about what we have learned, about sharing ideas, about sharing challenges, but they have enabled us to travel and to really learn from our international colleagues. So at the moment, and for quite a while, we have been staffed by, it's the equivalent of 2.2 FTE. So at the moment, I am funded to work 60%. Emma is 100%. And then we have part-time clerical staff of 60%. And so that is the staffing of our science shop here at Queen's. And our colleague at Ulster is working on 2 full-time staff, 1 full-time coordinator like ourselves, and then a full-time member of clerical staff, although she does have access to other support staff as well. And actually, on the slide, you'll see myself and Emma, Professor Bud Hall, and our colleague Claire, who runs the science shop at Ulster, and who we are meeting actually directly after we give this webinar, because we really work quite hard at making that relationship between the 2 universities work. As you can imagine, even here in Northern Ireland, there are structural differences in the universities, there are timetabling differences, there are also different strengths in terms of research, and we find that we have to make a point of working to make the partnership work, essentially, but of course, then for our community partners, it means that they can actually put a project on with either university. They don't need to worry, should they phone Queen, should they phone Ulster? They can get in touch with either. And then we would regularly share the projects that come in to us with our colleague at Ulster and vice versa. And in terms of location and where we were based, originally, as I mentioned, we were in a policy research institute, and structurally we were attached to social sciences via our director. And then we moved to research. Essentially, it was the Directorate for Research and Regional Services. And we were under the regional end of that, because the work that we were doing was working right across Northern Ireland. And so the view of the university at that time was that we would be well placed to reach out across Northern Ireland and to work with the sector that we work with right across Northern Ireland. And that was really quite a nice connection, in the sense that we were also part of the broader research that was going on. We were connected into that. After that, we moved to academic and student affairs, but essentially it was an area where the focus was around work-based learning for our students. And while our students are not working with the organisations, they are all doing research projects with the organisations. And we are now part of the Centre for Educational Development, because part of the thinking is that we actually are part of developing innovation through the curriculum. And I would say that it was very easy for us to find a fit in every one of those areas. So when we're talking to new science shops, we ask them not to stress too much about where they're based, because the model is quite broad. And obviously we're working with our students always. We're trying to find spaces in the curriculum where the work can do, so we're involved in curriculum development. We're trying to ensure that our students, when they do the kind of work that they do with us, get some skills that will enhance their careers. We are also very much involved in research and trying to skill our students up in terms of having a solid base of research skills and really valuing research. And also we're connected into a wide range of academic departments. So we believe, I think, over the years, that it's not really worth putting too much time. If you can find a home in the university, I would say take it, basically. So just very brief roundup of the kind of work that we've been doing over the last 5 years. Up until last year, for the previous 5 years, we have worked directly with just under 5,000 students, with 366 community-based organisations, and we've completed about 1,300 plus research projects for those organisations. Now, clearly there's been a broad range of other work that has gone on as well, but in terms of some of the core work of the Science Shop, those are some summary statistics over the last 5 years. And I think maybe Emma's going to pick up now and just tell you a little bit about the detail of our work and how we work.
So this is really about the operational side, and I guess we always say our starting point is with communities. So over the summer particularly, we would do a roundup with our community partners. We have, I think, about 150, maybe 200 on our database now since the GDPR roundup. We would meet with them, talk to them about what research they need. We would summarise this into short projects that we would then be looking to put out to our students. We also support the organisations in working with the students. So if something goes wrong, a student goes missing, you know, these things do happen. We're always there, and we would also make sure that the organisation gets a final copy of the research done as well. We work with academics too. So obviously, from our point of view, the work is always done through the curriculum, because we've learned many different times that volunteer students do not complete research. And I can say that authoritatively because I've tried it many times and it has never worked. So we help academics to build engagement into their own curricula. We help them think about how do they structure it. We help them think about what partners are appropriate for their students. We help them develop lists of projects that are suitable for their students. Some of that is about listening to and learning from academics as well ourselves, because if we move into a new academic area, we always have to stop and think, well, what's distinctive here? And some of that development work has actually been supported through the European project. So our last European project was Enrich, and it was about enhancing RRI in the curriculum. And there's some good resources online, I think, from that. And we've just recently been funded for a new Erasmus Plus project called Circlet. It hasn't actually been formally announced yet by us because we still need to sign off the final paperwork. But that's going to be looking at supporting academics through learning circles to make changes to their own curriculum design. With students, really one of our main goals is to make sure that students choose projects that are appropriate for them, based both on their curriculum needs, but also on their own personal interests. So, you know, we want to make sure, for example, if a project involves them being on the street with a clipboard in the rain, that they understand that this is what the project is. If they're the kind of person who wants to be in a library, it might be a different project. So we try to get to know them a little bit and direct them towards projects that are suitable for them. Some students increasingly are thinking about what it is that they want to develop as well. So for example, a student who maybe is quite quiet might say, I know I need to do something where I have to go out and talk to people because I learn from that. When we help them decide the right project, we get agreement from their academic, and then we take them out to meet the community partner for the first time. And we continue to support the student as well for the lifetime of the project. So if the community partner gets ill or gets pregnant, or, you know, these things happen, we always make sure that there's someone else there, and we support them if there's any difficulties in that relationship. Types of request, very, very broad. Our list is on the website. You're very welcome to have a look at it, but it's everything from local history to, you know, I'm working with students at the minute around business issues because many of our third sector organisations need to generate income. I'm working with them on photovoltaic and wind energy, working with them on sustainable development, working with them on social issues. So it covers a whole range. And one of our main challenges is actually trying to divide community research questions down into discipline-specific projects. Our dream is interdisciplinarity, but we haven't quite managed that yet. Again, types of students. Right, I would say we predominate in the kind of social sciences and arts and environmental sciences, but we work right across the university. And also I should say that our colleague in Ulster, they're as a university very well known for their creative arts. They have a very strong multimedia program. So that's where the partnership is really useful, because sometimes their students can do things that our students, you know, don't have the training to do, and vice versa. We have strengths as well. The process, I've touched on some of this. We agree a project list from our big list. We agree a project list with our academic colleagues. We present the projects to students. We meet with students to talk them through what they're interested in. The student gets academic agreement. Then we take the student out to meet with the community partner. It's a good chance to shape the project, and we're there to make sure that neither side is too ambitious, because of course a student only has a certain amount of time. The student then gets agreement from their supervisor. They do the project, and we get the project back, get it to the organisation, get evaluations from all parties. So we're involved a good bit in administration, which is where our colleague Lindsay comes in. In terms of challenges, I would say working across all academic disciplines is one of the challenges. Some disciplines, I mean, we do a lot in our School of Management because it's very, very open. We do a lot with sustainable development because it's, you know, the discipline lends itself so well to the kind of work that we do. But there are some disciplines where we haven't quite made those connections yet. And sometimes we think, Eileen's an anthropologist, I'm a sociologist by background. Is it partly our own disciplinary knowledge? Or is it that some disciplines are more open, but it's something we consistently try to do, is to open up into more disciplines. Academic buy-in, in the sense that certainly for us, our colleagues in the academic side of the university are very, very overcommitted and very busy. The research requirement on them, because we're a research intensive university, is huge. And we're very conscious that we're asking some extra time from them. Supervising engaged research projects, a student in a library takes less time from the academic. So we're always working with academics to try to encourage them to support these kinds of projects. And we usually find where we connect with them either is on the student experience or on their own sense of wanting to be engaged outside the university. So those tend to be the two key things that will encourage academics to sign up with us. Student buy-in increasingly, and I suppose because higher education now has more of a cost associated with it, we hear students saying, but what will get me a good mark? Which is understandable, of course, as well. And if they, you know, to some degree, we think you have to take risks to learn. Students, I think, are increasingly risk averse, so they're worried about that. So again, we have to work quite hard to try to make sure, you know, what we find is that 2 years out, students are really pleased they did a project with us, actually often immediately afterwards, but halfway through, maybe not so much. So, you know, we have to kind of do some work to buy students into it. Expectations of the organizations as well, because sometimes the organizations are so overwhelmed by need. You know, you think of an organization working with people who've been victims of sexual abuse, for example, and if there's a service user in front of them and a student, you know, their priority is always going to be the service user, but their need for research is huge. So there's a bit about making sure that if a student comes along, they need to be able to commit even a little bit of time, or if they can't, they need to be clear about that. So there's a bit about managing the expectation from the organization. Making things fit within curricula, again, that goes back to my point that there are some, you know, in the management school, I can do that very easily. In physics, maybe not so much. So there's a bit where we're constantly learning when new disciplines and even new programs open up. And also a challenge is that, you know, there are 2.2 of us and we are quite busy already. So we can see lots of things that could be done, but it's having the time and the capacity, the development capacity to do that. And that's where the European funding can actually really help, because it can help us add maybe, we've added a part-time PhD student through money that we've got in, for example, and that has helped. And also just somebody else coming in is sometimes quite good. In terms of one of the things you'd asked about was sustainability, and one of the things that we've always believed is that policy development is really important for sustainability for SciShops. So it's the thing of making sure that what you're doing is understood to be valuable by the people higher up in your own institution, but also by kind of potential funders. So inviting people along to things, making sure that they're aware. The policy agendas that we have linked to, obviously there is a much more of a policy agenda around research needing to engage outside universities, and that has been, you know, in a way I feel like it's a win for the Living Knowledge Network that is now so important. We also find that the work that we do links very well to the priorities in terms of student learning outcomes. So we would link to the kind of student experience stuff too, in terms of explaining the value of what we do. And also I think there is a feeling that the curriculum needs to change, and this is coming from European level, to make it more outward facing. And again, the work that we do has always done that. So these are the things that we tend to link to explain why the Science Shop is valuable. Partnerships, I'm just going to mention this, obviously the Living Knowledge Network, all of you will have heard of. This is the kickoff of the Enrich project. You can see the previous slide was when we did our policy seminar in the European Commission at the end of the project, and it was so cold. It was really sunny at the start of the project. But that's where we find actually some of the really good ideas coming through, and being able to say that things are being done by other international partners can be so helpful for us. We also have some good networks in the UK. We have the National Coordinating Centre for Public Engagement, which some of you might have heard of, which focuses mainly on public engagement with research, but also opens some space for discussions around this kind of engaged learning. And we have networks across Ireland as well, and particularly the Campus Engage network we would link into. And just to mention, some of you may know the Living Knowledge Conference is coming up in June 2020, and it's in Groningen, and it's Henk Mulder and his colleagues who are running it. I'm sure most of you will be aware of Henk. The call for papers is now open, so just to kind of encourage you to think about that. We'll be there anyway, and hopefully presenting a paper if we get around to putting something in. So I think that's what we have for now. If I don't know if there's anything, I think we went on a little longer than we should have, but there may be some questions now.
Right, thank you very much, Eileen and Emma. So yeah, let's start with the question. You can either raise your hand or just turn on the microphone, because I don't know who wants to start.
I'm just looking for the text here in case anyone wants to.
Oh, Giovanna?
Yes, I probably missed something. I wonder if since the very beginning you were actually working on all these different fields, or were you focusing on one especially?
Academic field?
In terms of academic disciplines?
Yes.
Yeah. In the beginning, we do, and even then we did start with the projects that were coming in from the community organizations. So we were not working only in one academic discipline, but sometimes if we manage to complete a project in one area, then it will generate more research. So actually we were focused pretty much in the social sciences, but there were also, even at that stage, environmental requests coming in, and we did manage to have some of that work completed as well. So I guess we have developed the range of disciplines. So at the beginning, for example, we were not working in the areas of business and management.
Mm-hmm.
More recently, I guess there's been a big move around sustainable development, but I saw some of that work coming through 20 years ago when it was just framed in terms of environmental projects. So social sciences and environmental sciences would be where we were focused initially, and we've worked quite hard actually to develop that. And of course we probably could have research projects in almost every academic area. We have a very nice one now which is suitable for physics, but we're struggling to see where exactly that might fit, because there's not quite enough physics in it to make it suitable for some of the spaces, and yet it is definitely a physics, it's an astrophysics issue actually. So that's where we started, and we've worked quite hard, I guess, to expand that work. And some of that has been driven by the demand from our community partners.
Yeah, because they have increasingly been asked to become more business-like. So we built our relationship out with our School of Management, partly because they were very open to it, partly because the demand from the sector around business issues was coming through much more than it had before. So sometimes you find that some things, just the issue comes around.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
So before we move on with the questions, may I ask anyone that is asking a question to introduce first briefly, introduce himself or herself and SciShops. So can we start with Giovanna that asked the first question?
Yes, sorry. I'm representing University of Brescia, and University of Brescia has started this new science shop in the framework of the SciShops project. And since I'm not expert in sociology or social sciences, I'm an engineer, and my expertise is in water engineering. The focus of the science shop is sustainable water management in a changing climate. But I'm very interested and actually enthusiastic about this experience, and I wonder how the science shop could develop after the end of the project, of course. So I think there could be some advantages in keeping the focus on some subject, on some specific subject, but on the other hand, you can have other opportunities if you consider to open this to also to the other disciplines of university. In University of Brescia, we have engineering, economics, law, and medicine. And I think also for medicine would be very interesting. But yes, that's a big change. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the science shops in the Dutch universities, but often rather than a centralized model, they have science shops for specific disciplines. I certainly have come across science shops for law. And certainly our colleague at Ulster University does quite a lot of work with her law faculty and the law students. But the other thing is that I do think that even if you manage to embed the science shop in your engineering faculty, that would still be fantastic, because that's every generation of students that are coming through your faculty with a sense of the demands from your society, not just the business issues, but actually the other organizations out there who are working on environmental issues, on sustainable issues. I mean, water is continuing, I think, to be a huge problem for us. So it's in one discipline, I still think it's a win. We have struggled here actually to work with our medical faculty, and it just feels like we should be having more work going on there. But I have tried over quite a number of years. Two things in the medical faculty: the students are heavily, heavily committed in terms of both their teaching and practice. And so there's very, very little space in the curriculum there, apart from through a student selected component, which they have access to in first, second and third year to actually work on our projects. And I have recently had a meeting with colleagues in Masters in Global Public Health. And so I'm exploring again, because it does seem to me that the projects are there, but it's quite hard to find the spaces in the curriculum. But we've not given up on that, actually. So we've been having some meetings recently to see if there would be a fit. But I would say very few spaces in the medical curriculum, certainly here in the UK.
okay, thank you very much for your...
I have one question. How do you involve students? I mean, is it like a mandatory part of their curricula to work with you or not?
It varies. So there are some modules where students are required to work with us. There's a social policy module where they're required to work with us in groups. There's a sustainable development module where they're required to work with us in groups. Until recently, actually, there was a management module where they were required to work with us as well, but a new academic has taken a slightly different vision on that. Probably that's the area we're most interested in developing, actually, because it's more time efficient for us in terms of working with more students. We do go in and offer projects, for example, to Eileen will be getting into the sociology and criminology undergraduate students coming up soon. I'll be getting into the master's students in the School of Management and offering them projects. So we do it both ways. But for us, I think the most time efficient way is where you're working with a full cohort of students. But otherwise, we simply have to identify spaces where we think students would be able to do a science shop project. So we are looking obviously at dissertation spaces, master's dissertation spaces, project modules, group projects. We review the curriculum and we try and find spaces where, even with a small change in the module descriptor, there might be space for students to work on a science shop project. And that's just an ongoing part of our work, because what happens as well is that sometimes we have a very enthusiastic member of staff and they're brilliant at what they do. And then of course they move on because they get promotion in another university. And sometimes the course just goes. And then we have to start from scratch and find another space in the curriculum. And that has happened to us regularly. It's not always the case that the modules are passed on and continue under someone else, because of course it's quite reasonable that academic staff would bring their own interests into the courses that they're teaching. So this is really an ongoing and time-consuming part of our work, I would say. And sometimes a new community question comes through, as Eileen said, the question about dark skies, which lends itself to physics. So sometimes you end up exploring a discipline because the question, you know, a nutrition question comes through from an organization and you think, oh, well, we have a nutrition program, we'll go and talk to them. So there's always a bit of, you know, having to work with what comes through the door, really.
I guess the issue there is that we have to be very honest with the community organisations that we work with. So we have to say to them, we cannot guarantee that someone will pick up this project for you. So if this is a project that really requires an urgent piece of research, we may not be, please don't just rely on the science shop. We may be able to pick students up in the first semester. So our business and analysis students in the first semester, they will start now. Emma's already started working with them, and they will complete a group project by the middle of December. And they do really useful work for our partner organisations. But other projects could be on our list for a couple of years. We have an annual review process where we get back in touch with all of the organisations, check that the projects are still up to date, check if they want to take them off, check if they want to put new projects on. So we do that every summer, and our colleague at Ulster University does the same. But we are not in a position to guarantee our community partners that we will be able to find students for them, because it is still, the students still have a choice as to whether they take the projects on or not.
Or which projects
they take on. Yeah.
And how do you involve teachers and professors to have their projects, let's say, pass through the science shop instead of doing them on their own? How do you involve teachers?
Well, actually, for many of the teachers, the issue is that they don't have the time to set the books up themselves. And in some cases, because so many of our staff are international, they don't know people in the local community as well. So sometimes academics, if they want to work out, to have their students work outside the university, we can be quite an easy way for them to do it, because we also take care of the administration and things. That's not usually the blockage for academics. Actually, the blockage for academics is usually just their own time and the time that they have available to supervise students on real projects where things might go wrong. So, you know, in principle, we don't find that the issue for academics is that they want to find the projects themselves. And of course some do all the time.
Yeah, and they have them.
Yeah.
And some of that is part of our work, as well as continuing to reach out to academics in different ways. And we've been able to use some of the European funding to enable us to have you know, particular meetings within the university. Particularly, most recently, we were trying to get more master students involved in working on science shop projects. And through the Enrich project, we were able to fund some meetings of staff and you know, have a number of lunchtime meetings so that they could learn a bit more about how we would work. But I would say that working with academics is part of the ongoing work that we have to do. And some of them might be drawn to our lists of projects just once. So I always think about the pharmacy academic, where there was one project on our list that he thought would be of interest to one of his students. And I have since gone back round pharmacy more recently, and, you know, there's no one there at the moment who's particularly interested, but it just might be one project on our list that an academic would be interested in, and then we might try and build on that. Although in the case of pharmacy, I have not succeeded.
I have one more question, sorry. Yes, just last question. Do organizations pay for your nothing?
No, because we would, if the organisations were paying, then they would be undercutting the consultancy research services of the university, but also many of the organisations that we work with would not be in a position to pay. And finally, unfortunately, we're not in a position to guarantee the quality of the student project work. We say to the organisations that we're working with, these are students that you're working with. They are still learning. All of the work is happening in the curriculum. All of the work is assessed. And all of the students have an academic supervisor, as well as the support of very experienced science shop staff. But actually, we cannot guarantee the outcome of the project. And so we make that very clear to our community partners. So those, I guess, are the three main reasons. And also, I mean, the science shop model was really set up to support that sector. And part of the reason for setting it up, of course, was because organisations in that sector were not in a position to pay for access to university research services.
And I mean, on the student thing, I would say every year we have 10 maybe really, really good student projects, like really good pieces of work. We have maybe another 40 that are quite good, that have good things in them. And then we have 10 that are just... you know. But the thing is, because we work with our community partners over time, what we would say is not every project will be brilliant, but we will try to make sure that if you have a bad experience, the next time we bring you a student who we really think will do something good. If you've had a very good piece of work and we have a student through who we think maybe not so strong, we might say, can you do us a favor? So it's a sort of a reciprocal relationship insofar as you can predict things about what students will do. And every year, one student surprises you, and someone you think can't do anything does something brilliant, or someone you think is brilliant does a bad piece of work, you know. So,
but also the organizations sometimes find just one small finding or recommendation to be useful. So maybe much of the student's final project is not particularly relevant. Part of it might just be reflecting back to what the organization has told the student, but there may be one small piece of a mediocre student project that is actually useful to the organization. And sometimes we can't predict what that is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? See any microphone?
Yes, I have a question. Sorry, I would like to put the camera. I don't know. It's okay. Yes. Okay. Hello. Well, my name is Elias Sanz. I am working in Madrid, in University Carlos III of Madrid. It's a new university. It's from since is from more or less is now is 30 years old, no more. It's very new for the Spanish scenario of the universities. Okay, we are working in several subjects, but not in medicine or in life science, but in engineering, in social science and humanities. Especially is one of the best topic is law. It's very important this university law, because the first rector was a very known Spanish lawyer. It's interesting, this subject, but we are in our SciShops is very new, because we started the SciShops more or less 2 months ago, and I am working with the community, because we are not. It's not exactly the university is placed not exactly in Madrid. It's in a city very close to Madrid, 11 kilometers to Madrid. It's very close, but the name the city is Getafe. It's a close city, and then we are working with the community, with the local community, with the city hall, because Getafe is very big city. It's very big city, and then the community. The local community, the local government has many problems because the city grow up very fast, and there are many problems, many with the traffic problems or the mobility problems. Well, and then we are trying to work with the community, and now it's very successful, the relationship between us, because they look at the university like a very good opportunity to improve their situation in general with many problems. And then we have a little, maybe a little problem with in one way that you mentioned before, is in order to engage the academic. Why the academics? Because the academics in general is normal. I understand, of course. They want to improve their curriculum, because they are, you mentioned also before, they have a lot of things to do, everything teaching duties, researching duties, many kinds of duties. But if for us it's complicated, it's difficult, because if we want to involve these people in community community research project, they want that the university recognize their implication, the time that they are put in this project. And it's very important with us to do that. How do you do that in your university? And thank you very much.
So this is an ongoing challenge. Many years ago, at least 10 years ago, we did actually manage to get something written into the promotions criteria in our university. One of our pro-vice chancellors was very supportive of this area of work, and clearly our academics have to teach and they have to do research. But the third aspect in terms of promotions, at that point, he amended to administration, because there's a large level of administration involved that our academics have to take care of as well. And he, working with us, added community contribution to the community. So it was either administration or contribution to the community. And so that was part of the promotions criteria in the university for about 5 years. And then a new pro-vice chancellor came in. Happens. And actually the criteria changed again. And at the moment, it's not an explicit part of the work of academics. So it's an ongoing challenge for us, alongside the workload modelling that needs to be done to indicate just how much extra time an academic needs to spend. And of course, this is the reason that SciShops exist, is to try and remove some of that pressure. I mean, do you have a member of staff in your science shop at the moment, or is it just you, or?
Yes, I have a member, but 2 people are working with me in this.
But I would say that's why I said, though, that where we get academics, it's where they either are committed to the student experience and to improving things for students, or they're committed to engaging outside the university, because they are not compensated for the additional work at the moment in their you know, in the amount of time you get for a traditional module is the same as for an engaged module, but the work you put in is often more in an engaged module. So it's where academics have a personal commitment, either because they see how it enhances things for students, or they like the idea of working outside the university, or sometimes it connects with their own research interest in the area as well. But you're right, that is, and to me, it's one of the things we need to address as a network at a policy level. We did try to do it in Rich a little bit in terms of working into DG Culture and Education in the Commission, just to start the conversations going, because I think it helps if it's recognised at higher levels, but I think that will take some more time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elias. Any other questions?
I have a question about the way you collect the questions from the CSOs, because I went into your website and I see contact us. I'm wondering, I didn't press on that. So do you have a template where somebody can write the question in, or when you take a question in whatever form, then it's your job to structure it, so to speak, and then forward? How does it work?
Well, actually, it's interesting because different places do it in different ways. I know we work very closely with the Technical University in Dublin, and when they meet with a community partner, they have a template. So they say, have you got anything in environmental sciences? Have you got anything in social sciences? Which I think is quite an interesting and good approach. We tend to start with someone contacting us with a question. Then we have a meeting with them, and sometimes the conversation, you know, I met with someone over the summertime and the conversation was about a business issue, but as we talked, he started to talk about the need for solar energy panels on his building. So sometimes the conversation just will go in other directions, but we do tend to shape the projects. We come back from that conversation and we write up project titles, which we share with our partners. They change it if they want, and then that's what goes up. Some partners that we've worked with for many years will just send us through titles, and that works because they know the format quite well. But by and large, we prefer to have a conversation if we can.
So what you see in the website are very summary titles, and then with specific academics, we may need to expand those titles a bit, and we need to take specific academic advice on that. Now, we've become quite experienced at that, and we can do some of that ourselves, but some of the expansion of those summary titles takes place in partnership with the academic student and the community partner.
Yeah.
But a principle of how we work is that we do try and meet with the community partner, because there is a great deal more knowledge and context that you gain from that, and that you can then provide to the student and the academic, as well as just a two-line research question. But a lot of that falls to us, really.
Yeah.
That's part of our expertise.
Another question, and then I'll leave the floor to other people. How do you, because it's great that you are experienced and you can do that now, but if, let's say, going back in time, somebody would come and give a training course on making the selection optimized, let's say, and expanding these questions, is there such a training course right now for SciShops staff that allow them to hone the questions and, I don't know, do the matching and, I mean, all the aspects of being a good SciShop facilitator?
Certainly now, the International Living Knowledge Conference has a summer school before the conference every year, and it's for people who are just setting up their SciShops or who have a little bit of experience, and we deliver training as part of that, and it talks through all of the different aspects of the process. So that is something I would highly recommend if people were able to attend that. Usually it's a day and a half. It's usually coordinated by Henk Mulder, who has many, many years experience, but he has people contributing to that training who have a lot of SciShop experience, but he also tries to draw some people in who have just set up their SciShops more recently, and so they can remember more clearly what some of the early stage problems are. So that is the one piece of formal training that I am aware of. And also I know on the website that there are many quite short documents that different SciShops have produced, and there is a toolbox. This is on the Living Knowledge website, where you might also get some summary information on those parts of the process.
Well, it was a bit missing. Yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say too, we find when we're training up PhD students to do some of this work, that really the first thing we do is send them to a kind of a warm, we would say, community partner, so someone who knows the process a bit so that they can practice. And it usually takes a few practices before they really start to get the idea of it. So I think it's one of those things that you learn by doing as well.
Right.
People's instincts, in my experience, are often to tie it down, and to tie it down very quickly, and to tie the question down. We try and allow an hour for those meetings, and in fact sometimes they go on for a longer time than an hour, because often the organizations themselves have not necessarily tied down exactly what it is that they need, and they almost need to carve out the space with another person to work through what it is that they need and are looking for.
Okay. Well, Elias is leading. We had a summer school in the summer, actually, which perhaps I should have mentioned earlier, where we over 4 days, newly established SciShops could learn stuff. And Elias is now leading the guide, the writing of a short guide on that. So just to flag that up, because it's gonna be ready when it's gonna be ready, the guide. Hello, Elias?
Sorry. You don't mind? Can you repeat the question, because
I was sharing with Eileen and Emma the fact that 4-day summer school we had for newly established SciShops, there is a guide summarizing all the sessions, the training sessions that went on during these 4 days, and then it will be ready soon. So I was asking you as the coordinator of that writing effort, when it's going to be ready.
I think we have a new call next week. I think Thursday. Hey?
For the training guide summarizing the summer school.
Yes, but the training guide, I think the deliverable is we need that the deadline is next month with all information about the guide, but it's next month at the end of next month.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So we'll be sharing that with you.
Yeah, but we have we are preparing the deliverable, and we have a call next week, Thursday, and I need to send you and Liselot also, because I see Liselot in the screen, but I need that you send us you revise the information that is in the draft.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay.
The presentations, yeah.
The presentation, yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and since we mentioned actually Liselot, and Liselot is from the new data science shop, maybe you just want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I will. Yes, I'm Liselot. I'm from Leiden University in the Netherlands. And we have a science shop that focuses on using citizen science to tackle local challenges. So we organized a call for questions in Leiden and The Hague recently, and we received questions from citizens and researchers, and not only community organizations, but also individual citizens. And of course, that's really a challenge to match these questions to researchers and get the good questions out of these questions. So I was wondering also if you work with individual citizens or only community organizations.
Only community organizations, and honestly we have many more questions from those community organizations than we can manage.
Yeah.
So it also, in terms of how we're set up, structured, that is the constituency that we are set up to work with. I mean, I know that there is a good deal of interest from individual citizens, but when they come to us, what we tend to say is, there is also a community organization who is interested in this issue, and invariably there is. And if that person is really interested, they will contact that organization, and then they can come back to us. And this has indeed, they can come back to us, but with the organization. And that means then that you're not relying on just one individual as well. If a student expresses an interest and something happens to that individual, when we're working with organizations, we try and have more than one contact in the organization.
Yeah.
Commits to do their research with one person.
Yeah, it's a sustainable relationship.
It can leave them in a difficult position. But it is also then as well about how that research is shared, because an individual may want it for their own interests and actually a broader agenda in terms of how our science shop operates. So that's how we manage, because we do occasionally have people phoning up with individual questions. So that's how we would manage that process.
Yeah, and it's how we manage if we have questions coming through, for example, from the public sector organisations, that we can see are questions that have a societal benefit to them. We say, are you working with a community partner on this? And they almost always are. Mm-hmm. So it's not appropriate that a local government comes to us, but if they have a community partner who also wants the same question answered, then we ask them to get the community partner to contact us.
Yeah, okay. So you not focus only, like we have a science shop initiative in Leiden, and they also closely collaborate with the municipality. And they have, of course, this agenda for their city, which priorities they have regarding questions from society. But do you make sure that you always have this community organization in addition to the municipality?
Yes, because apart from anything else, we do genuinely believe that the municipality or local council or local government organisations should be working in partnership. And so we would be encouraging them strongly. I mean, sometimes we have said, we think there are also organisations there who are interested in that if you're not already working with them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, certainly the way things are going in Northern Ireland, there is a move to try and encourage our government organisations to work in partnership. It does not always happen, and so if we can encourage them to do that, we would also be happy to do that.
Yeah, and you just look for yourself for these community organizations that fit or do they?
So we would ask the partner to identify someone. So, for example, I've recently had a high school, contact me with a question, but actually it's around a program that they're running to encourage entrepreneurship in their young female students. And they're already linked with an external community partner who's delivering the program. So I'm saying, I think this is interesting. Our students will be interested in it, but can you please ask the person from your community partner training organization to say that it's something that they would like to see done? Because we're also only funded to work with community and voluntary organizations as well. So it's important for our funders that we do it that way.
And I mean, our funders are a government department, and they are the people who are funding us. And it's because of the partnership aspect of our work, particularly, that's what they find innovative. And so they're interested in us working in partnership with the other university so that all of the community organizations can access the knowledge through either university. So they're interested in that aspect of the partnership. And then they are interested in the partnership that we have with the community organizations across Northern Ireland. Those are the two key elements for our funders. And as I mentioned, I think this is still considered innovative in some ways, even though we've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Liselot. So I don't know, because it's already 1 hour, if Eileen and Emma wants to leave, if they have something else arranged, because I know that there will be a couple of people here that will have more questions.
Well, our colleague is arriving in 10 minutes, so we have 10 minutes.
Right, so if there is no other question for now, then you can actually contact our hosts through email, Eileen and Emma. So I want to thank you again very much for this very interesting webinar, and thank everyone for being here. And we will be in contact. And I think you already know about our final symposium in Brescia in Italy.
No.
Okay, so Caterina, would you like to say more about this? Oh, wait, because we can't hear you.
Yeah, I mean, the organizing committee is here also, Carmen, and is Helen here? I don't know. Anyway, so we have the final symposium of the project on the 30th and 31st January in Brescia. Giovanna is the local organizer. Giovanna, are you still there?
Yes, here I am.
Yeah, so do you want to share also something from the perspective of the organizing team?
Yes, there will be this 1.5 symposium hosted by University of Brescia, and this will be the final presentation of the work of the European project, SciShops. There will be some interactive thematic sessions, mainly in the afternoon, and you will be very welcome if you plan to come and visit us and have a chance to attend the workshop and give some more advice.
Is this in January?
Yes,
20?
January.
Okay.
The 30th and the 31st.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And it's in Italy, so that's the most important bit, I guess.
But it's January, so
yeah. And I mean, just to remind you all, I would hope we might get to meet some of you at the Knowledge Conference in June as well, because it's always just a really nice conference. And if you're interested, there's such a range of different people with different experiences. It's like we've been doing this for many years, and we still always come out of it feeling that we've learned a huge amount. So I would really encourage you to have a look at the call for papers, because I'm sure some of the outcomes from your project would really be of interest to the wider living knowledge community as well.
Great. And also, just the last thing, that we are also running a pitch competition for pitch videos that you can promote your science shop, but I can send you all the links and all the necessary information in case you're interested in participating in this as well.
It would be interesting to see, certainly, yeah.
So it would be also good if you can forward me or to all the partners information about the knowledge transfer events and any event that you are organizing, and I can actually send the information to everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you once again, and again thank everyone for being here. It was very useful and very informative.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
So interesting.